whether we are practitioners or advisors. We have a very good team with us tonight, and we'll be tackling issues around seeds, nurseries, and crop establishment. And of course, we have our moderator, Nekesa Wafula, who is part of the team that puts together this masterclass, along with Angela Limo and Lilian Wanjiro, who give a lot of technical background support. So without further ado, we've taken a bit of time getting started, and I apologize for that. But without further ado, I'll hand over to Nekesa, who is our moderator for tonight, and she will get us promptly into this session. Karibuni sana.
Asante,
Thanks,
Ricky.
Nekesa.
Thank you so much. Karibuni sana for this evening's webinar. Today we have discussion, and the focus is on seeds and crop establishment. So we have on panel 3 key people in this industry, and they will introduce themselves, starting from Dr. Kimani, then Kasim, and then Mr. Daniel Wanjama. Karibuni.
Thank you. Doc.
Yes, okay, fine. I see you. I hope, I don't know whether, can you hear me?
Very well, yes.
Oh, my name is Dr. Esther Kimani. I am a PhD holder in crop protection, MSc plant pathology, and BSc agriculture. I'm the former managing director of KEFIS. My experience is mainly in plant health, also ensuring that seeds are certified, and food safety. I think I'll stop there. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kasim Owi. Currently, I am Group Managing Director for Prime Seedco. Prime Seedco is a joint venture between Seedco as a group and Lima Grain Group of France. And we are specifically dealing with vegetable seeds. And I'm looking after the vegetable seed business of Seedco across Africa. Before that, I was managing director for Seedco Kenya, where we have been able to build a credible business, and Dr. Kimani can confirm that. By training, I'm a plant breeder, but by practice, I am a marketing person. Having worked in production, in food production before that, then I went into crop protection with the company called Syngenta, where I was marketing manager, before I came into seed with Seedco. So I've been around the industry close to 30 years now. And yeah, we've seen the ups and downs of the agricultural sector from different angles. So we'll come to that. But I think today specifically I'll be talking about seed and the seed industry in Africa, and you know, just to give a general overview of what you need to do in the seed sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kasim.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Daniel. You can go ahead.
Very well. Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Wanjama. I'm the founder and coordinator of Seed Savers Network in Kenya. And my role is to grow the organization so that it can help farmers to access seeds, especially small-scale farmers. And I'm happy to share my experience with you, and I give you the perspective from the non-conventional or informal or farmers managed seed system that I think most people are not aware. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And since we are late, we are going to go straight into the presentations. So we'll start with Dr. Kimani. And we would like to request our audience to send in their questions through the Q&A button so that we can be able to respond to them as we move on. Karibu, Dr. Kimani.
Thank you very much, Nekesa. So today I'll just focus on the role of seed in crop production. And we shall be looking at the importance of seed itself and then certified seeds. We'll give some background on that will make us understand why it's important that seeds be certified. So seed plays a very key role in increasing food and also fiber production, depending on how the people demand it. As you know that people will always eat, so seed is very important in production of crop. And it provides good quality seed, provides sustainable crop production, a way of sustaining the crop production. And it ensures good seed will ensure that that seed germinates. High quality seeds, when wisely combined with other inputs, can highly increase the yields. So what is seed? Sorry. Sorry. So seed is defined as for the in Kenya by the Plant Variety Act, Cap 326, as that seeds that includes the combs, cutting, bulbs, lanas, all those things that you can plant and then get a plant. However, the Oxford Dictionary defines it as a small hard part produced by a plant from which new plants can grow. And for the purpose of today's discussion, we are going to concentrate on the definition as per the dictionary, because actually when you read the act, you see that it has also focused mainly on that kind of seed. Seeds can be of different sizes depending on the type of the crop, and you can have very small ones like the ones for orchid, where you can have 1 million seeds per gram, or for coconut doma, this sea coconut, where you can have one seed weighing 20 kg. So they vary, and but in all, this seed is the one that is used for production of plants. So for seed to produce crops, it must germinate. And so we have to appreciate that seed is alive. This is also called viability, because it must germinate. It must overcome the dormancy, and proper environmental conditions must exist for it to grow. So seed is living, it can be destroyed by adverse environmental conditions, and it can lose vigor, and also age can make it not germinate. Why I'm giving this information is so that when we come to talk about certified seeds, we may understand what certification is all about. So the benefits of what breeders do can only reach farmers through seed. And it is estimated that when breeders come with new varieties, you can be able to increase the production of even up to 25%. That's why farmers are always being encouraged to adopt new varieties. And therefore, the seeds that are being given to the farmers, they must be of high quality for the farmers to see the benefits of the new breeds. So when we talk of seed or seed production, what is it? It's not just planting a crop and getting out the grains or whatever that is produced. It is a scientific, well-organized effort where a lot of investment is made. I think Kasim will be talking about it. And also a lot of investment is done in production, processing, storage, and also marketing. So scientific seed production also follows treatments and packaging and labeling procedures. And seed production also is done in a designated program. The pedigree of the seed, that is from the origin of that seed when it was bred, is assured. And you can be sure that the seeds that is being produced is what the breeder had bred. So authenticated source of seed is required for you to be able to raise a seed crop. So during seed production, quality standards like removal of the plants that may not be true to type are removed, the weed seeds, and all the other contaminations are removed. And so the seeds must have physical purity and good germination. It must be mature, and it must be dried to the right condition that will help it to germinate when put in the right condition. So for seed to be called seed, it should be monitored and certified according to standards. Why is it important that the seeds be certified? To facilitate multiplication of superior varieties, allows for availability of high quality seeds, maintenance of genetic purity, and which is very important because so that when you are predicting your yield, if a particular variety is supposed to give certain amount of product, you are able to know that if I plant 100 seeds, this is the amount of yield I expect from that. It also ensures that the seeds are strong, vigorous, and of excellent health. They are not sick. So how is seed certified in Kenya? Kenya is one of the few countries that is well recognized for its seed laws. And in survey by the World Bank in 2017 on ease of doing business, Kenya was ranked 7th globally, and it was first in Africa on its seed regulations. The seed industry is regulated by the Seeds and Plant Varieties Act and its regulations, and the seed law governs the process of variety release, registration, testing, marketing, packaging, and certification. So the legal framework is important, for it helps in the development of agriculture sector, and also creates a suitable environment for those who grow seed, for the seed stakeholders. Kenya maintains a centralized seed system for certification that is done by KEPHIS, the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service. However, recently the law has been reviewed, and it has also allowed for authorization of private inspectors to conduct certain seed aspects of the certain aspects of the inspection. So seed certification, the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service is a government regulatory agency that assures quality of agriculture inputs and produce. And they are the ones who are authorized to oversee the certification of seeds. So even when private inspectors are authorized, KEPHIS is the one that authorizes them. So the goal is to ensure that increased productivity and enhance harvest of food to ensure food security and creation of wealth. So certified seed is in Kenya, as we would define this, is that seed that has been certified by KEPHIS and has undergone field inspections, laboratory testing for pests and diseases as per the Seeds and Plant Varieties Act. Imported seeds also undergo certification in the country of origin, and the world has harmonized seed standards. And KEFIS also is a member of the bodies that that gives guidelines for the certification of seed, such as the OECD seed scheme and also ISTA, International Seed Testing Association. So the Seeds and Plant Varieties Act was revised in 2016 to allow for the private inspectors, as I have said, and also the law regulates transaction in seed and provides for testing, establishment of varieties, index of varieties, release of varieties, control of import and exports, and also it grants the plant breeders' rights. So before you start exploiting a certain variety, you have to be sure you know whether it's protected or not. Otherwise, you might end up in court or in jail. So, but KEFIS registers the seed merchants to do businesses and also the seed sellers. So this environment creates, or seed certification creates opportunity for businesses. All those wishing to register can register there. You can register as a seed merchant to produce, process, or market, but a seed seller has to be approved at the county level. So farmers are encouraged to use certified seeds because for high yields, to be able to access markets, and also so that they can be able to plan their agribusinesses because they can easily predict the yields, and also they get less diseases. You can they can recognize the certified seeds by the labels that are put there by KEFIS, and the small labels. The industry, KEFIS and the industry have introduced a label where you can scratch and then verify the validity of the seed. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kimani. Maybe just to ask you a few questions, especially when it comes to seed inspection, because like there's been, say for example, a farmer has an issue with the seed and they have to, maybe they've planted, they bought a seed and they've planted it and it has not germinated as expected. What are they supposed to do? What are the procedures for them to undertake? Is there any compensation that is done to them? And also, just looking at the way crops like legumes are, these are self-pollinated seeds. And we know that from our forefathers, we've been selecting seeds and keeping. What is the implication of buying seeds, say, for example, from a company that is trading in Kenya and multiplying the same seeds come the next season? Is there any implication when it comes to such a farmer doing that? Or, yeah. Then also a final,
repeat your first question, please.
So the first question was when, for example, if a farmer had a problem with a seed that they purchased from an agro dealer or a merchant, what are the procedures that they have to undertake? And is there any form of compensation that they get when it comes to, say, a failed seed crop, and probably the weather was okay, they did everything that they needed to do, they planted with fertilizer, still they did not get the germination percentage that they expected? And also the issue of replanting seeds, say for example, like legumes. We know that legumes are self-pollinated. It's not like maize where you can select and, you know, grow the seed for the next season. What's the implication of that when it comes to certified bean seed or, you know, soya seed? What is the implication of that to a farmer? And there's a question also from the audience where they say, the percentage of potato seeds ranges from 3 to 5%, which is very low. How is this so? I don't know what they mean by that, but I think probably the germination percentage or something like that. Then Yeah, I think we can take those ones for now as we progress.
Okay, okay. Let me start with the first one about the seeds that may not be germinating or that may not be quality. There are several reasons why the seeds may not be quality. And as you said, the seed is living. And if seed is not stored properly, or is put together maybe with the fertilizer or wet or put in water and then it starts germinating and dried again, then it may not germinate. And sometimes if not handled properly, it can be sold to farmers when and it may not germinate. Other times also people collect even grains and they sell to farmers, which we call fake seed. So in case a farmer buys seed and it is not germinating or is not quality seed, they can report that to KEFIS, and KEFIS will investigate and see what happens, whether it's the farmer who didn't handle the seed they bought properly or the company sold them seed that was not of high quality. And from there, the law provides for compensation of farmers, though I always feel that it should be more stringent than it is, but the farmer can be compensated by the seed merchant if they are sold seed that is not of high quality. But they need to, farmers, when they buy the seed, they are encouraged to keep the receipt of the seed that they bought from the receipt that were issued from where they bought it, and also the packet of the seed, so that if they report to KEFIS, KEFIS will use those documents to do their investigation and see where the problem was. Because what happens is that every seed that is sold in the market, KEFIS also plants them as a post control to test. And so if a farmer complains about a certain seed rot, the KEFIS may also have the information whether that seed was good or not. And so if if KEFIS results show that the seed was good, but the farmer still has a complaint, then they have to investigate where the problem came in, and sometimes whether it was the seed merchant who didn't take care of the seed before they sold, or the farmer, and then from there now decisions can be made. With regard to the replanting of the legumes or any other seed, as I said, before you replant, you have to know whether it's a protected variety, because breeders invest a lot actually into coming up with new varieties, and the law provides that the breeders can protect their varieties, whereby they can either be the ones who produce the seed or they license other people to produce the seed, and they get their royalties to try and recoup some of the investments that they make when they are coming up with new varieties. And so for them to be able to recoup back their investments, the multiplication of seed, then if the variety is protected, the multiplication of seed is restricted. And therefore, farmers may not be allowed to maybe multiply that seed if it's a protected seed, unless they have authority from the breeders. So it's important before you decide to multiply seeds out of a variety to see whether it's a protected variety. Then with regard to the potatoes, about the 3% and why. Actually, the demand for potato has increased greatly. In the past, people had not seen the benefits of seeds because, potato is one of the crops that you can propagate vegetatively. You harvest, and then the tubers, you put them back to grow crops. So sometimes ago, farmers were not really even buying certified seeds. However, because of the buildup of diseases, because every time you recycle seeds, there's that risk that you will be multiplying diseases and reducing the quality of the seed, which also reduces the productivity of the crop. And for some of the potato diseases, some of them even you may not get nothing because the diseases just wipe off the crop. And so what happened is in 2011, the government saw the need to increase the productivity of potatoes and also manage the diseases that were affecting the crop production. At first, we didn't have many companies that were registered, so that can explain why the seed was so low. And also, even the ones who are registered, the seeds they produce, sometimes they had even many challenges selling that seed to the farmers because the farmers still felt they could multiply their tubers. But now a lot of awareness have been created. The demand for seed has really increased. It creates opportunities for the development of the seed industry in the potato. In fact, I must say that in the last 5 years, the number of companies registered to grow potato seed have increased from about 4 of them to almost 30. So this shows that the industry is becoming, the seed industry in the potato is becoming vibrant and creating opportunities. But now you can register as a seed merchant, but you have to agree with the breeders to grow their potatoes. But in Kenya also, Caro has bred very many varieties, and they license farmers to grow. So everyone has an opportunity to be a seed merchant. Maybe today I should just demystify. I know I have used a lot of scientific and see this as a scientific process, but what I mean by scientific process, I just mean that you have to follow certain standards because when we talk about certified seeds, we are talking about seeds that are of high quality, maybe they don't have certain diseases that will destroy, because some diseases will be in the seed and they may be latent, what we call latent. You may not see the diseases, but when you plant that in the crop, you get the crop being affected or not growing, or if it's in case of the potatoes, you find the potatoes are rotting. So in certification, you make sure that those diseases are not there. So if you are growing potato seed, your soils have to be tested for nematodes, for bacterial diseases. And then from there, you get high status materials to grow into the field so that you get very good high quality seed. And you can see that the quality of the potatoes has continued to increase because the seeds now, farmers are adopting use of certified seeds. More people are investing into certified seed. And we hope that in future, we shall even be exporters of certified seed.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kimani.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give the time to Mr. Kasim Owino just to take us through the presentation. And we hope that we can also get to get answers for some of the pending questions, especially when it comes to private sector and the seed industry. Karibu, Kasim. Your mic is off.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me just share my screen. Are you? Okay. It says the share is post. Nekasa, are you able to screen?
Not yet. Not yet projected, but it says it's starting to share. So maybe we give it like a few seconds. If it doesn't load, you can proceed as it loads.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, what I would like to talk about is I wanted to have just a brief introduction of SEEDCO as an organization. Just a minute. Not sharing yet.
No, now it's okay. I think you can proceed. Yeah.
You can see.
Yes.
Yes.
You can see the screen?
Yes, it's okay.
So is it moving?
Yes, now it's okay. You can proceed.
Fine. Basically, just a quick intro on SEEDCO. We are a vertically integrated seed company. And with vertical integration here, we basically mean that we have, we have operations running from research and development, where we do crosses to look for new varieties, all the way to seed production, quality control or quality assurance, distribution, and of course, in the end, supporting our farmers. We operate in East, West, and Southern Africa. Our key crops include hybrid maize, wheat, soybean, cotton, and we are now in a wide range of, vegetable seeds. Our vision is better to dominate the seed business in Africa, and we want to be a leading supplier of quality seed across all crops in Africa. In terms of footprint, we are today operating in about 27 African countries. In some of them, we have a substantive presence, like in Kenya and Tanzania in East Africa. But in many other countries, we have agencies working with us. And we generally believe that, seed is not just seed. If you mix it with the technical support that it requires, and in this case, we pride ourselves in providing that, then the farming becomes profitable. Now, the seed industry in Africa is generally very, very diverse and locally driven. We've seen in the last a lot of consolidation at global level. Some of these have come down to the level of Africa, but if you look at Africa as a whole, the seed industry is very diverse. And generally, the industry in Africa is made up of a small group of global and regional players. I'm sure you all know which global players we are talking of here: Syngenta, Monsanto, Bayer, Corteva, and of course regional players like SEEDCO, like ourselves, like Plain Karoo and a few others. And if you look at the other countries, and even Kenya, there are a lot of small, medium, small growers. If by last count, if you ask Kefis, we had almost 130 seed companies in Kenya. Generally, the global and regional players have integrated business models, which covers extensive research and development, seed production processing, quality assurance systems, extensive marketing and presence across Africa, and also capacity building capabilities, training of farmers and training of distributors in matters of handling seed. And generally, if you look across the industry, companies will differ largely in terms of portfolio. You will find companies that specialize in field crops, others specialize in vegetables, and a few will do both. These differences are also driven by geographical focus, and the geographical focus here generally is driven by the strength in their portfolio companies that are strong in dry land crops, dry land field crops will generally focus in the dry areas. And of course, the companies that specialize in vegetable crops will be driven to different areas in the African. We also see differences in ownership structures. You have government-owned companies, we have private companies, we have family-owned companies, and we have cooperatives. And just for your information, even SIDCO started as a cooperative of farmers. Now, the CITAS value chain is very simple, if you ask. Generally have research and development, which is where we develop varieties. You then have to bulk the seeds. And here it is critical that, depending on the country you are in, you have to follow the procedures and protocols for production. In this also, you have cases where companies are doing own production or where we do contract production. From there, you go to your seed processing facilities where you clean, you do all the things that you need to do, and then to sales marketing before you go to the farmer. And at each of those stages in the value chain, you need different competencies. And this is what makes the difference, between seed companies. So in terms of R&D, the business models that you will find in the seed industry will vary depending on the size and capabilities of the seed companies. So a lot of companies in Africa are still using conventional breeding systems. But of course, in advanced markets like South Africa, you will find genetic engineering programs being part of the R&D process. And the aim of R&D here is to develop new and improved varieties, targeting specific attributes that the farmers are looking for. As we grow the industry, specific things that if you don't have, you basically get taken out of the market. And depending on areas where you intend to address, and those attributes that you look for will tend to vary. So for companies working, for example, companies working in dry areas will be looking at attributes like drought tolerance or water use efficiencies or things like that. If you're operating in highland areas, you will be looking for varieties that are resistant to crop rot, to northern corn blight or things like that if you're doing maize. But the idea for companies is to find functional products. They don't have to be flashy, because sometimes you get a very nice looking plant, but when you come to yields, you really don't get this. In terms of production, I think I mentioned this, you can do own production or contract production. But the nature of the seed business is that you generally require large farms, and especially if you're doing crops that they need isolation, like your field crops, like in field crops like maize, then really require large areas. In terms of processing, of course, what happens, we generally clean the seed, we treat it and pack it at factories that are either in premises that you own or you basically lease premises to do this. When we go to the sales marketing, our main aim or the main aim of the industry is to try and distribute it through a large retail network. And the aim of that, the key aim, is to minimize the cost of acquisition to the farmer. In some of the countries you go to, you will find that farmers have to travel long distances to be able to access seed. In terms, behind that, you have to have support services in finance. Basically, working capital is very critical. And this is where seed business is different from the other businesses. In most other businesses or in manufacturing, you can make a program that will give you products in a week or in a day. In the seed industry, working capital requirement is huge because many times you have cycles that are running to 4 years. I'm saying this to be very clear. If you take a company working in hybrids and take it that you have a 3-way hybrid, normally you have to take first year to do your inbred lines. You take your second year to produce your single cross before you are able to produce your 3-way cross or your hybrid in the 3rd year. And for you to do that, all this time you're tying capital and you're spending money all along before you actually get to the product. So this is why to be in a successful seed business, you must have access to huge capital. And here, either you have support of banks or you have, shareholders with the huge capital base, because that working capital but also capital expenditure on equipment and plant and machinery is huge. So this is really why it is very, very difficult to see many big companies in the seed sector. So basically, if you are going to run a successful seed company, you really need to focus on your core areas of expertise where you put resources yourself, and to minimize your requirement working capital and capital expenditure. You then would need to outsource areas that you don't need to put time money into. So that is what it takes to run a seed business. But outside that, we then you have your seeds available. Then we start looking at markets. What I am just showing here is the rate of usage of improved maize in Eastern and South Africa, or Southern and Eastern Africa. If you look at most of the countries, this is data from 1997. This has not changed much. So depending on what you'd wish to do, if you're going to go into improved seed, if it is maize, this would be a good guide for you over what would happen. But sometimes we also look the other way. If rate of adoption in the markets are low, do you see potential for growth? Are the farmers able to buy the seed? So the whole idea is to look at where the potential is so that you have a chance of succeeding if you are going to set up a seed business. So if you look at that table, if you go to set up a seed business in Zimbabwe, all the farmers buy hybrid seed, almost all, 82%. In Kenya, you have a hybrid or improved seed penetration of 71%. So that will guide you as a seed or a seed company on where you have the greatest potential or the greatest probability of success. In terms of constraints in the seed sector, we have a number of them. This list is not exhaustive, but one of the that we say is that in terms of improving agricultural productivity, the greatest impact comes from seed, because if you get it wrong, then you will not grow. But for us to be able to develop, we see a number of constraints. One of them is in the area of seed production. The capacities in most of the countries, and Kenya included, is limited. Finding good growers, educating these growers, of the facilities they will use, and with the changing climate patterns, irrigation facilities for reliable seed production is very, very, this is one of the areas that is really suppressing growth of seed industry. Of course, the other part of that is access to credit for our seed producers. Affordable inputs. There are many, many things that affect. The other area that we are also looking, like in Kenya, we have an issue of subdivision of land, and this is really reducing the areas that are accessible to us for seed production. Quickly, if I also look at the other area that has been difficult in most African countries is distribution and marketing systems. In some areas, roads do not exist. Retailers or distributors do not have, facilities for handling seed well. So seed quality, deterioration of quality is very quick once the seed leaves the seed company. And sometimes where seed is left in the channel, many times, I think Dr. Kimani will confirm to you, most of the cases where we have farmers complaining about seed quality, you will find that majority of them are seed that stayed in with the distributors over 1 or 2 seasons. So those are some of the challenges that the seed companies have faced over the years. The other factor that really affects growth of the seed sector is the commodity prices. I've just given an example of Tanzania here, where the hybrid seed price, 1 kilo of hybrid seed will cost you 10 times the price of grain in the market. So if the prices of seed are so high, and the commodity prices are so low, really the farmer does not get that incentive to invest in improved seed. Now, I think my last comment on the issue of constraints is on our policies, reforming them and implementation. We have been working on a harmonized seed policies across the region. But I think most of you who have been in the industry would be aware of the limitations we have had in terms of implementation. The idea for us always was to be able to get, make it easy for companies to be able to move seed across markets. I've lost my feet, just a minute. But this has not been very, just a minute. Yeah. So this has not been very forthcoming in some of the countries. We have had delays in the countries entrenching the harmonized regulations in the local statutes. That is slowing down the whole idea of the harmonization process. We also had issues with the time it takes to release varieties in some of the countries. We have cases where variety releases have taken 9 years, but of course the idea is to try and push this to become shorter than they normally have been. And I think the last one, which may not be on my slide, is the issue of fake seed. I think Dr. Kimani mentioned that. We've always said that in many countries, fake seed is the second biggest seed company in the country. So this is something, I think in Kenya, we've done well to work with KEFIs to try and stem. But in the other countries, countries like Uganda, this is a real problem. I think, in short, in brief, that is the information I was able to put together, but we are open to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kasim. Yeah, that's a very interesting presentation, just giving the overview of the industry, the challenges, and what you actually input, the efforts that you're putting in place to ensure that we have good and high quality seeds. The questions now coming in from our audience. And one of the questions was about the Agenda 4. Now that cotton, we are looking at the textile industry being supported by the government in the Big Four agenda. Have you taken advantage of bringing in, seeds that will be available for cotton production? That's one question that is coming from the audience. Then another one is about soybean. And this is generally for probably all the seed companies. This comes from Carol Mamzali. She's asking that in the previous, say 2 years, she has not been able to get certified seeds, not any from the Agrovet, from Seedco, even making calls to Seedco or Kenya Seed, East African Seed, mostly all the seed companies, including Calro. We know that they're also breeding some certified seed. What are you doing to ensure that we have quality soybean seeds, considering that this is a crop that is of interest currently when you're looking at high protein, animal feeds, humans, oil industry, most of them are using soybean. What are you doing as a company to ensure that we have good quality seeds? And probably a last one, but we'll take others as we move on, is from Wasike, Maaka Wasike. And he asks, why do farmers still get stuck in using their traditional varieties, yet we have high yielding varieties? Maybe this is a question that would cut across Kasim and Dr. Kimani, just to understand what is the missing link between research and the farmer, what is really the missing link such that they are still stuck on using their old varieties? Just we'll give you about 3 minutes so that we can move on to Daniel's presentation.
Let me just take this one by one. In terms of cotton, I think, let me say cotton and soy. Seedco is the leading producer of both cotton seed and soybean seed in Africa. We have done very well with both crops in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, and also in Tanzania. We have we have an acid delinting plant in Mwanza for cotton seed. And I think in Kenya, we have been able to release some 2 new varieties of cotton through our subsidiary called Ton. That is a Seedco company that is handling our cotton business. So we are looking at the cotton industry here, and we have released 2 varieties in the last year, and we are working with the textile industry to be able to get cotton back, to cotton production back to the levels that we had before. In terms of soybeans, we also have varieties that have been released here. I think for the last 3-4 years now, we have a variety called, and we have a variety called SC Salama. These 2 varieties are in the market. We are scaling up production. The only issue we've had in Kenya is that, one of those constraints I talked about earlier, getting good quality soybean growers has been a big problem. So we have had to go back to the basics to start training farmers in soybean seed production. And this has taken us a while, but I think we are getting there. The volumes that we're providing into the market are growing, but of course we recognize the fact that demand went way ahead of seed supply. But I think this will be resolving itself in next 1 year or so. And I'm glad Wellington is listening because he's the man driving that in the Seedco. The other issue, and I think Dr. Kimani will help us here as well, as a seed company, if you have a variety that the farmers prefer, sometimes you then are divided between whether you want to force farmers to move to a variety which they have not embraced or not. So you'll find the tendency in most seed companies, and I think here we are also guilty as charged, is you see a trend where the marketing people in most of the seed companies will be very hesitant to take out a variety that is giving them volumes. As much as science and research have come up and said, in this category or in this agroecological zone, we have this new variety that will give the farmers better. But I think this is also a failure on seed companies on educating farmers and exposing farmers to their new varieties. You see, if you look at the seed industry in Europe or in the US, varieties don't last more than 5 or 6 years. But in Africa, we have varieties like 614 is probably 30 years plus. Varieties like Duma are running to 20 years plus. But is it because seed companies did not produce or manage to produce better varieties? Not really. It is simply because farmers have their preferences on those varieties, and it has been difficult for seed companies to move them out of this. So sometimes, you know, what I see with our colleagues in other markets, in the developed markets, is just a decision by the company to take out a variety, and the varieties don't last 5 to 6 years before they put in a new one. So I think at some point we will have to take a bold step to do that. Or the route that the government was proposing not too long ago was to say that all varieties that are more than 10 years old be taken from the market. So it's something that is a discussion that we are still having as an industry. And I think at some point we will have to take a decision to move, because we know that the varieties that have been released later will produce better than the older ones.
On the same, maybe as Dr. Kimani takes up the same question, what do you think is being done to protect our local varieties on the same, just to preserve what we already have? Are we losing our local varieties? Are we keeping them for future, you know, just, you know, for breeding purposes? What are we doing about our local varieties? And also when the researchers are breeding these new varieties, are they considering the preferences and taste of the farmers so that they can incorporate this in the seeds that they are breeding? What have you seen from your experience? Dr. Kimani.
Okay, thank you very much. As I was listening to Kasim about the varieties and the government forcing certain varieties to be withdrawn from the markets, I don't believe in that. As let me now stop being a scientist and say a marketer, because I've done some marketing. Customer is king, and the farmers know what they want. Yeah, there are those things that they want in those varieties. For example, let's say it's the ugari. They want certain varieties depending on their cultures and the way they like the ugari to food. So if you bring, you know, Kenyans like ugari, and the other day we were eating ugari, and we were trying to eat this ugari, and it was just, you know, it was disintegrating like the flour, and it was, but there's another variety that really make very good ugari. So in breeding, as Nekesa has asked, are the breeders considering the characteristics that the farmers want? In fact, they have to start breeding for the market. Do your research, find out what do people want, and then come up with a variety that meets their requirements if you want them to adapt the varieties. Otherwise, it's difficult to force people to take what they really don't want. I remember one time we were negotiating for the markets, and you know, the oranges in Kenya are usually, the ones produced at the coast are usually green. But you find the market usually wants an orange that has an orange skin. And you can't go forcing consumers to eat your oranges that are green and they want the orange one. So you have to find a way of providing what they want. You either come up with new varieties that will give the orange with a knowledge skin if you want to penetrate that market, and especially if the customers can find the same elsewhere. So breeders need to look at that. When you're breeding, are you breeding for the market? Have you found what the consumer wants? Then with the protection of the local varieties, we have the gene bank that keeps most of the some corrections. They need to be funded more because it's very important to maintain this genetic resources, because they may have some characteristics that we may want to turn to from time to time. However, I think with a lot of modernization and not adequate funding in agriculture, most of the those genetic materials are getting lost. However, I know some of the farmers are keeping them, but they may not gain the benefits that come with agribusiness if they also don't adopt some of these very high yielding varieties. So the most important thing is as government and as citizens is for us to look at which are these varieties that have superior characteristic genes and have them conserved at the gene bank, or even the farmers, organized farmers, because I hear in some places farmers have groups where they can conserve the seeds over generations. And maybe they are compensated a bit if there are such programs, but also they need to adapt the high yielding varieties for business and agribusiness, because we believe that use of high yielding varieties that are wanted by the markets can help farmers to really participate in agribusiness and create wealth, so that we don't keep on referring them as poor farmers, but we can or go to agriculture, because people will always eat. So if you're in agribusiness, you'll always be in business.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so we go to the next presenter. That's Daniel Wanjama.
Let me comment on the soybean. Someone talked about soybean. I think one of the challenges we have in Kenya is the lack of organized systems along the value chain. So you may find someone is looking for soybean, somebody else multiplied seeds, and they had nowhere to sell. Because I remember one time discussing with Carlo why they are not availing enough soybean. And they were like, we multiplied another time and we couldn't sell them. In fact, and you see, it's a very sensitive seed. I think it has a high content of oil or something, so it can't store for very long. But if people can link up along the value chain such that when I produce the seed, I know so and so will take it and do whatever they are doing, and then they'll be able to sell whatever they are selling. Then if the value chain is running, you find that you have a vibrant seed industry. And this I have seen in potato nowadays, because there's a lot of awareness along the potato value chain. So you find that from those who are processing, they are demanding this is the kind of potato we want. So it's going back to research to find, do we have those kind of potatoes? We find we haven't multiplied them enough. So you find even technologies, high technologies like aeroponic, hydroponic, and all these stem cuttings, they're coming up to try and multiply these seeds and avail them so that certified seeds can be available. And you find the industry is becoming vibrant. Yeah,
I think that's a lesson that the private sector needs to take home. We'll move on to the next presenter, then we can take on more questions after that, because there are quite a number of questions that have been posed. So Daniel Wanjama, you can take the lead on the next discussion about, and Daniel works for an organic seed certification, organic seeds. So basically the people who are asking about organic seeds, this is your time to ask all those questions and then Daniel will handle them. Karibu, Daniel.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, you're clear.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, as I said before, I work for Seed Savers Network. I don't have a presentation to share, but I can talk. I work for Seed Savers Network, and Seed Savers Network is also an association of farmers. Members are farmers groups, And farmers groups establish seed banks in the villages. And the seed bank is where all the seeds are kept. Some of the seed banks are field seed banks to keep the seeds that are not true seeds. And we have various farmers groups in different villages. And our strategy is to have at least one farmer group in each village, so that the farmer group that is saving seeds and conserving seeds there, they are able to exchange seeds with other farmers. They're able to maintain certain varieties that are rare and getting lost, as I have seen some people asking. And we connect all those farmers with a database that we have information about who has which variety, who has which crop. For instance, if it is a rare variety of sweet potato, we have information on who is having it and who is able to supply whenever it is required. And we are also now doing some kind of a seed exchange platform where farmers are able to exchange seeds and interact online. But we have a challenge with the farmers' technical capacity on IT and also having the system, but we are working on that to see which is the best model. And part of the way that we work is training farmers to build the traditional knowledge, or to bring back the traditional knowledge on seed, because knowledge on seed existed before. And in the traditional days, all farmers used to save seeds. And I think we used to have food, and we used to have diversity, and we used to have proper nutrition based on the knowledge of our forefathers and foremothers, if I could say that. And that is what we try to revive, so that people can continue saving their seeds. And the other item or the other intervention that we do is documentation of local varieties. And once we document local varieties, we also do some nutritional analysis. Some of them are very nutritious, and if they are not conserved, then we lose a lot. And also going with that is traditional knowledge that farmers have associated with those varieties, how to conserve them, how to use them, and for which purpose that they use them. And we believe this is a very important knowledge that we should conserve. Now, why should we save seeds? Why should we save our own seeds? You'll be surprised that our National Seed Policy 2010 agree with us that the majority of the seeds that are planted by the farmers come from seed saving. They come from a seed network of farmers, come from the informal industry. They don't come from a formal system. And there is also another publication from a UN body, Biodiversity International, that says that up to 80% of the seeds and the source of planting materials is from the informal industry. They are from farmer to farmer. That means it's a very important industry. And it's surprising that in our country, this industry or this informal sector or this farmers-based seed system has no recognition in law, has no support, and it is totally neglected in favor of formal industry that is likely to be giving us only 20% of the seeds that we require. So that's why it is important to save seeds, because without this kind of seed saving and network of farmers, then perhaps 80% of the crops of 80% of the production will not be happening without coming from that sector. And again, majority of the farmers in this country, Kenya, they are small scale, very small scale, 2 acres, 1 acre, and maybe over 70%, they produce the food that is eaten in Kenya. And these farmers are poor. But when you look at seed prices, I'm not saying all of them, but some of the prices are really high, that farmers who need the seeds, unless they save the seeds, they will not get the seeds. You'll be surprised that, for instance, the prices of tomato hybrid seeds could be higher than that of gold. And that is equivalent to weight, the same grams, if you were to compare. So you'll find like to just to grow one greenhouse of tomatoes, you might require to pay even 8,000 shillings for the seeds only. And that make it unachievable to many farmers. If you, for instance, you want to grow 1 acre of potatoes, you might spend 8,000 shillings on seeds only, which is way beyond the reach of many small-scale farmers. And also the distribution channel of the seed or the formal seed system does not work for everyone. For instance, you might see some farmers spending more money traveling to go and buy seeds than the money that they are supposed to spend to buy seeds. That is the cost of travel. If they were moving on motorcycle or they were moving to urban centers to buy seeds or to look seeds for seeds, they spend much more because the seeds stores are not at their doorstep. So that means that system cannot be fully relied upon. And there is also lack of supplier of some crops, in terms of the seeds. For instance, if you are looking for sweet potatoes to plant, you will not get a lot of time from seed companies. And for instance, even potato, which is an important crop in our country, if you are looking for seeds and you go to any shop, you are likely to get only, for instance, according to the National Potato Council, only 4% of the seeds that are in the market or are planted by the farmers are certified in terms of potatoes. That means unless farmers have knowledge to save their own seeds and to retain purity of their own seeds, it would be impossible for this country to grow potatoes. And I also think it is very important for a country to be self-reliant in terms of seed supply. As we have heard, or we have all heard from previous speakers, seed business is a high capital undertaking. And because of that, a lot of seeds that are in the market come from global company, which most of the time they don't originate from Kenya. You'll be surprised that, for instance, for exotic vegetables, even the companies that are local are importing seeds. So if we rely on seed imports and something like what we have now, Corona, happens, and then the companies that are supplying us with seeds are not able to do that, then it means if we have no seeds, we don't grow food. And we all perish because we can't grow food, because we have no supply, and because we killed our own local system of seed sufficiency. So, and I also say the reason for conserving local varieties, it is because they are better adapted in our climate to deal with the environmental conditions in terms of the soils, in terms of the weather, in terms of the water requirement. It means that if you don't have your own local varieties that are adapted to that, and then we rely on commercial varieties that most of the time also, I don't say it's all companies, but most companies design their varieties to go with agro inputs that they also make, so that the seeds are used to sell chemicals. And what happens to our food safety? We have seen the situation where we have crops that are produced, especially vegetables produced using chemicals, but when they reach airport, they cannot go to other countries. They have to be consumed in Kenya because they are poisonous. And in our local market, we continue consuming toxic food that is not safe, destroy environment. But it all starts with the seed, because we are using seeds that have to be supported with chemicals, with a lot of fertilizer for them to survive, because basically they probably don't, they are not supposed to be in our environment. And that's why they need to be supported to survive. Yeah, and for instance, why do we have why is it so hard, for instance, to have organic seeds in Kenya? Because I don't think we have yet organic seeds in Kenya. We don't have local seeds that are organic. And I would attribute these to the existing laws, regulations, and seed policy, because the requirement for seed registration is very high. And before you have any seed certified, it must be registered. And after registration, that is when then you can apply for, registration from KFIS, which is a technical and also expensive process. A technical process because you have to they test your seed using the US system. That is a distinctiveness, uniformity, and stability. They test on that. And they also test it on a national performance trial that before it is released, then you have spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and then you may not eventually get it released. Then after that, you can now start multiplication. When you start multiplication, then you can start you can apply again for certification, which again is expensive. And all these kinds of seed. And at one time, I tried to import organic seed in Kenya, and you'll be surprised that organic seeds will be illegal in Kenya because they are not dressed. So it was not possible to import organic seed because seed requirement in Kenya, according to our regulations, seed should be dressed. And because they were not dressed with chemical, then they could not be allowed to come. And that is the main hindrance, because if you are to grow organic seed in Kenya, it means that you have to get certification from KEFIS, and again, you have to get certification from organic certifier, because in the organic system, there is also another third-party certification. So it would mean it is very, very costly for you to do that, because
Daniel, may I please interrupt you? So I understand there are some of our panelists who are still in the office, and there's actually quite a number of questions that have come up, and there's even a request from the CEO to have a second session of the seed. It seems like it's an interesting topic, and it's a topic of interest. Let me call it a topic of interest. So we would like to probably end in the next 1 minute. and then we can meet again next Friday, or probably see how to coordinate the next session, because it seems there's a lot of questions. We haven't even covered half of them. So, and there's a lot of questions for you, also for Dr. Kimani, and for Kasim as well. So we would, yes.
I'm actually taking this on the move. So if you're worried about me, it's okay. I can still be taking this as I move.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So probably Daniel then will finish his presentation, and then we can have part 2 of this, because still there's a lot of questions that have been raised and we'll not be able to finish it on time. So yeah, maybe I don't know if Dr. Kimani, you're comfortable joining us, and Kasim and Wanjama, if you're comfortable joining us next week, because this is a very important topic that we have to handle.
I would be very glad to join you. And I think next week I can also make a presentation on vegetatively propagated materials, the ones that are the other seeds other than the seeds that are grains. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then together we can also, I don't know whether also you can share with us some of the questions we may not be able to answer today, and then we prepare ourselves with good answers.
We will do that. We will share with you all the questions that have come up today. There are quite a number. So Daniel, you can go ahead and finish your presentation. Maybe in the next 2 or 3 minutes, you'll still have the next session. So you have, I think we'll start with you because we ended with you today.
Right. Okay. So yeah, there is a bit of challenge with the time. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, seed that farmers have, or farmers that are saving, are not entirely poor quality, because farmers have a way of ensuring quality, and they have some knowledge in checking on quality. And for us as Seed Savers Network, we have been thinking about how we could come up with a model that we have actually a draft of how farmers could be using a participatory methodology in terms of certifying their own seeds. They can check each other, and a sample could be checked, and they're able to have a quality seed that is they have certified as a group, and then they can share in the village. And there is also another more progressive model of seed breeding that they call open source seed system, that it is being propagated, and it's being initiated in different countries. Like in US, I think they have several companies dealing with seeds that don't have patents, because patent is one major issue that cost that add to the cost of the seeds and create monopoly. And they also in Germany, and people are working on that. And I believe in Kenya, we have so many scientists working in the public sector who should also be breeding open source seed varieties that they don't need to have patent on them, and they can release to companies. Because I think the main challenge with so many companies is even having to register their own varieties. As you heard, the registration process is very costly. So I think, thank you very much. And I'm also happy to join you again in discussing this.
Okay, I'm sorry to the audience, we have to end today, but we are going to have part 2 of the seeds and crop propagation. So next week we'll hear more. Most of your questions will be answered. I'm sure there's so much that we can share about seed, and so much information that we can give to farmers. So we'd like to thank you, and we look forward to next week so that we can finish the session on seeds. Thank you so much, and have a good evening.
Have a good evening too.